Good morning, everyone. Some of you I've met, but some of you I haven't met yet. Those of you I've met, can you remember my name? It's Barry, and I'm quite happy for you to call me Barry. And if you see me in the street, you can say, "Hello, Barry," and you can come and have a chat if you like. I understand at school you're doing respect at the moment, how we respect each other and how people respect us. Among my books, I've got a book called The Value of Respect, and it's the story of Abraham Lincoln, and it's a story written by Anne Donegan Johnson. Once upon a time, not that long ago really, there lived a man named Abraham Lincoln. He became President of the United States. People listened to Lincoln when he spoke. When he went out to walk, they crowded around him. Almost everyone loved him, and even those who didn't love him respected him very much. One day, after Abe Lincoln and his son Tad had been out walking, Tad thought about the people he had seen crowding around his father. "You know, Father," said Tad, "I hope that someday people will respect me the same way they respect you." "They will if you have respect for them," said Abe. "We all usually get back what we give. And you can respect people for many different reasons. Of course, you respect them first because they're human beings." Later, Abe sat looking out of a window, watching the squirrels scamper about in the White House lawn. He thought about what Tad had said. "What we learn when we're children is so important," he told himself. "It makes all the difference when we grow up and go out in the world." Then Abe's mind went back to when he was a child himself. He remembered his mother and his father and his sister Sarah, who was 2 years older than he was. He remembered the one-room log cabin on the farm deep in the wilderness of Kentucky where they all lived together. There wasn't much furniture in the cabin, for Abe's family had almost no money. The soil on their farm was not good, so Abe's father spent a long and many hours trying to make his crops grow. Abe's mother worked hard too, looking after her family. She made all the clothes, and Abe grew so fast she could hardly keep up with him. "Abraham," she would say, "you grow out of everything. What am I going to do with you?" I suppose you grow quite fast too, don't you? Sometimes when the sun was warm and the birds were singing, Mrs. Lincoln took Abe and Sarah to play in the stream near their farm. "We're lucky to have beautiful trees around us," she told them, "and lucky to have a clear stream to bathe in and the fresh air to breathe." "I guess we are," said Abe. "It's a good thing some things are free. We couldn't buy them if they weren't, because we are so poor." "Being poor is nothing to be ashamed of," said his mother. "As long as you are honest and you respect other people, they will respect you, no matter how poor you are." "I'm sending you to school," she said to Abe one day. "It's high time you learned to read and write." This didn't sound like fun to Abe. "Oh, Mother," he said, "hardly anybody here goes to school." "Well, it's quite different then, wasn't it? We all go to school now." "I know," answered his mother, "but education is very important." Well, we know that, don't we? So both Sarah and Abe went off to school, and they had to hike for 2 miles on a dirt road to get there. "My feet hurt," complained poor Sarah. "I sure hope it's going to be worth it." "Me too," said Abe. They soon learned to make time pass quickly on the way to school and home again. Abe and Sarah talked about the things they learned in school. When Abe and Sarah came home from school, they always told their mother about the things they had learned. Then they did their chores, and they did them cheerfully. The children liked to help their mother because they respected her. She was a kind person who took good care of the family. Abe and Sarah were happy enough in Kentucky, but Mr. Lincoln was not. He was tired of trying to grow enough food for his family in the poor soil on the farm. "Children," he said one night, "we're going to move to Indiana. Life should be much easier there. The soil is better and we can grow bigger crops." Abe was a bit upset when he heard this. "Do you mean I have to leave all my friends?" he said. "Don't worry," said his mother. "You'll make lots of new friends when we get to Indiana." Abe knew this was probably true, but he still felt lonely. Well, they did move, and when they found a good place, they wanted to set up a shelter quickly so they would be protected. Everyone pitched in to help. Abe was working as hard as he could when he imagined he saw a squirrel jump onto a tree stump. "Hi, Abe," said the squirrel. "No need to be lonely around here. You and I can be friends." Abe was pretending, of course. He laughed because he realized that the squirrel was just a little creature he had made up in his mind to keep from feeling sad about the friends he'd left behind. When the cabin was finished, Abe invited his little make-believe friend, the talking squirrel, to move in with him. It sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? The cabin was called a half-faced camp because it had only 3 sides. The open side was where the Lincolns built their fires and cooked their meals. "Father says we're going to build a bigger, nicer cabin soon," said Abe, as he and the squirrel snuggled down to bed on a bed of dried leaves. The next year, the Lincolns did build a better cabin, but before they lived long in it, a great sadness came to them. Mrs. Lincoln died. Sickness that couldn't be cured in those days. Abe and Sarah were terribly lonely. Mr. Lincoln did his best to cheer them up. "Your mother wouldn't want us to sit around being sad all the time," he told him. "She'd want us to keep busy and try to be happy some of the time as we remember her." Abe and Sarah knew that their father was right. They did try to keep busy, and there was a lot to do. Water had to be brought up from the nearby spring, clothes had to be scrubbed in a big wooden tub, food had to be cooked in the fireplace, and bread had to be baked in the outdoor oven. The dirt floor had to be swept with a broom made of twigs. Can you imagine sweeping with a broom made of twigs? Abe and Sarah did their best, but the work never seemed to get finished. Sometimes, long after the sun had set, they were still busy gathering wood for the fire. "Children," said Mr. Lincoln one day, "I'm going away for a little while. When I return, I might have a surprise for you." What do you think the surprise could be? Mr. Lincoln returned home with his surprise in a few weeks. He had a new wife, and her name was Sarah. Sarah was a widow who Mr. Lincoln had known for a long time. They also had Sarah's 2 daughters with them, Sarah and Matilda, and her son John. Sarah and Abe could not believe their eyes. "Well, dear children," said their new stepmother, as she reached out her arms to give Abe and Sarah a big hug, "we're all going to be one big happy family." "I'm getting all mixed up," said little Abe's friend, the squirrel. "There's so many people named Sarah around here." Abe looked at the wagon that had carried his new family to the farm. He saw that it was filled with wonderful things. There were tables and chairs and pots and pans and the softest feather mattress you could possibly imagine. The family lived happily, and Abe was never too busy to show his stepmother that he loved her too. One day he came in from the fields, swept her off her feet and lifted her in the air. "Abe Lincoln, you put me down right now," she said. "All that heavy work you do has made your body grow. But reading and learning is just as important," she said. "They make your mind grow. I'm going to try to get you lots of books so you can read and learn things." Abe soon found that he really enjoyed reading. He sat by the fire by night when others were asleep, and he read every book he could find. "Golly, there's a lot to learn," said the squirrel. "You bet there is," said Abe. I guess I'll never know it all. Abe and his friend Alan went down to New Orleans. They didn't meet any bandits on the river when they were going down, and they reached New Orleans safely and unloaded the cargo they were carrying on a flat boat. They set out to explore the city. Abe couldn't believe his eyes. He'd never seen such elegant buildings. He'd never seen so many different kinds of people. He'd never heard the music that was being played there on the streets. Wherever he went, delicious smells floated in the air. What do you suppose that was? Smells floating in the air. I suppose they were selling food. When they visited New Orleans, "This is more exciting than I ever imagined," said Abe to Alan. But suddenly, Abe and Alan turned a corner and came upon a big square. They saw something that Abe would never forget. I wonder if you know what that was. It was a slave market. Abe saw black men and women and children chained together. They were being sold as if they were horses, sheep, or cows. Of course, Abe had heard about slavery, but he had never before seen people treated as if they were animals. "Alan, those black people are human beings too," said Abe. "They deserve respect, just like everyone else." At that time, it was not unusual to sell black people in slave markets. They had no rights at all, and they had to do whatever their masters or mistresses told them. "Someday," said Abe, "I'm going to try and put a stop to things like this." Alan looked at Abe, and he believed it. When Abe Lincoln said something, he meant it. Abe returned home, but he couldn't forget what he had seen in the slave market. He told his friends about the chains and how husbands were separated from their wives and children taken away from their parents and sold to new masters. "The black people have feelings just as we do. How does anyone treat a human being in that way, with no respect?" he said. No one could answer Abe's question, but almost everyone Abe talked to agreed that slavery was a terrible thing. Now it was time for Abe to leave home. First, he headed to Salem, Illinois, got a job in a trading store, and at night he studied law books so that he could become a lawyer. The people who knew him were sure that Abe would make a great lawyer one day. "He cares about people and he's honest," they said. He met many people along the way as he became a lawyer. They respected him because he listened to them. They knew he cared. After a while, he was elected to represent them in the state legislature. Now Abe was really busy fighting for the rights of other people. Later, he got married and had children of his own. There was another election for Abe. This time, he represented the people in the Congress of the United States. While he was in Washington, he showed that he would treat everyone with respect. Later, when a man named Douglas spoke out in favor of slavery, can you imagine people thinking that's good? Abe argued against him. He told people how wrong it was to have slaves. People all over the country now knew of Abe Lincoln. By this time, there was trouble in that country. The southern states said they would form their own if the northerners would not let them keep their slaves. Could Abe save the country from being divided? The people thought he could, and they elected him president. What Abe Lincoln learned all those years ago, we continue to learn as we grow up. Respect everybody, be honest with each other. And we do this because we know God loves us all, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the story of Abe Lincoln, and there's plenty more to learn about him, and you may do that in your own time sometime. See you again sometime. Bye.